Maina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Maina, we have a number of issues. You've just delivered a very exciting press conference of your duties that you've actually been assigned to come to the United Kingdom to assess a few things. Please talk to me about what you've actually come here to do and some of the things that you've achieved.
Well, I'm here at the invitation of the government of the United Kingdom. I am the UN Special Rapporteur on the rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and of association. Right. Now, the way the UN human rights system works is that there are these, what we call special procedures, that are independent organs of the United Nations, but they're part of the UN, that then provide independent expertise on certain issues around human rights. So my area of expertise is freedom of peaceful assembly and of association. Right. So I'm here on a country, what we call a country mission, which means I'm invited by the government, and then I go around the country as many places as I can, assessing the respect for these rights. Okay. So I started off in London, then I went to Belfast in Northern Ireland, then I went to Edinburgh in Scotland, and then I'm back here now in London.
Fantastic. And what were some of the key things that you found? For example, in London, we just had the Olympics. We had a number of protests that happened during that time. Ireland is known for the protest between the Protestants and the Catholics. What are some of the findings that you've had? What are some of the reports that you can share with us?
The UK is, even though it's a very small country in terms of size, is very diverse in the way it does its policing and the way it does its protests. Clearly, the centerpiece has to be Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland, because of the historic differences and the historic divisions and the historic violence that's gone on. But what has been remarkable, and this cuts right across the whole of the UK, is the tremendous improvements that have been made in and around policing and in respecting human rights of people to protest, to assemble, to associate. That's been remarkable. If you look back 20 years ago, the UK had some really bad habits. In fact, as late as 2009, during the G20, the police here were very, very heavy-handed in London. But that sparked a series of improvements. And I think, for me, one of the things that's been quite remarkable is the fact that there has been serious constitutional reform of the United Kingdom since 1997 that has actually transformed and is transforming the way governance has been held. Absolutely. And it's been done quietly. For those of us who are from Kenya especially, we know of constitutional reform as going through one process, one new constitution, then we go on. But here has been remarkably a progressive things, moving away, for example, from the House of Lords as the final court to an independent Supreme Court, not linked to the House of Lords, not linked to the legislature. Significant difference.
How is that benefiting those that are protesting then? How is that something that, for example, the normal person in London streets doesn't know about these rights perhaps? How is that progressive process actually helping him to understand, okay, I have these certain rights. I have, the right to peacefully protest, and I have, also the ability not to get arrested, and I can, voice my opinion and my, for my causes.
Well, I think people do know their rights in this country, to be honest, the right to protest. They know it. I think that what has happened is that in the past there have been some police practices that have tended to discourage people from protesting. I mentioned in my preliminary findings the police practice of kettling, where they cordon people off and leave them there for hours and hours. That has had a chilling effect on some people who say, I want to protest on Palestinian rights or Israeli rights, but I don't want to risk being kettled, so I won't go. So that's been one of the interesting things, and actually, to my mind, and I have never seen a region that knows and understands human rights as I did with Northern Ireland. Ordinary people there quote the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they quote the European Convention on Human Rights, they know human rights. That is a human rights country in a very real sense. Well, they talk about it a lot and they understand it. And so whenever they're arguing, they don't argue in terms of political issues. They argue, this is my right under European Convention, my right under this and that. It's fascinating in that sense. So yes, so the big issue has not been about absence of rights or people not knowing their rights. It has been about the police and the state sometimes tampering or hampering those rights from being expressed. But I think over time and since this process of democratization that began in 1997, there has been more and more recognition of it. I know, in fact, one of the things that this coalition government said, the one here in the UK, that they would restore the rights to non-violent protest. And then they made that as one of their campaign commitments as a coalition, which is a big step to take.
In central London, just there by Parliament Square, next to Big Ben, for a number of years there were tents there, people protesting, and they lost their right to be there. Is that something that's progressive, or is that something that perhaps has taken away their rights?
That has
people who are angry.
Yeah, that has taken away, and I think that the police sometimes, as I mentioned in my findings, the police, particularly in London, see protests from the prism of public order, as opposed to human rights. Now, that's something we are recommending to them to start looking again and changing. Now, tents and camping is in this country is a big tradition in terms of protest. My view is that, and the way they have done it now is that they're not allowed to camp, and you need permission to even protest outside of Parliament. That's unlike anywhere else in the United Kingdom. Everywhere else you notify. You don't seek permission. You notify saying we are coming, we will be protesting, and then you negotiate with the police and other authorities. Where's the best place? How do you do it right? etc. But in Westminster, at least in the houses of the centre part, that prohibition is something we have taken issue with. We're recommending that they stop it, that they change it to restore the rights. Yes, it's unsightly. Could see them coming back. I hope they do. I think it's part of life. I mean, life is not all nice and dandy. People are angry. People have issues. Let them express it. Now, what you don't want them to do is take over the streets and then stop trafficking, especially if there are not very many. What you don't want is that they make the place dirty and hygiene issues. What you don't want is that it becomes an issue of crime, becomes center of crime. So there are other issues around there. So my mandate is strongly, solidly for peaceful, non-violent protests and assemblies. That's very clear. So that's what we focus on. So when it goes to violence, we don't touch.
Fantastic, and it's good that you've mentioned violence. Let's go to Kenya now.
Now you speak as a Kenyan.
Now we're talking as a Kenyan. Okay. We've seen the people are very angry at what's taking place. The MPs have just tried to pass a bill where they're rewarding themselves with these big fat salaries. Yes, they want diplomatic passports, they want bodyguards, they want this, they want that. We've seen a number of protests that have happened. One that comes to mind, the people are burning coffins, right? And saying that, you don't deserve a state burial. Is that what you would call a peaceful protest? The burning, physical burning of protest, of coffins in Nairobi?
As long as it does not injure anybody. As long as it does not destroy property, it is peaceful. Peaceful is peaceful. I mean, look, protests.
You talked about anarchy, though. Anarchy is
violence. That's violence. That's different. I mean, and the one you're talking about actually was a very well organized protest. It didn't just happen at random. It was from a structure. I know the person who organized it, and I think there was a message they're trying to send. And I think it was an important message to send. Now, whether we agree with it or not is irrelevant. And I think that's a part about peaceful assembly we have to understand. It's not because you like an issue or you support an issue that it's okay. The issue is irrelevant. It's the process that's important. Can they express their opinion in this manner? And are they hurting other people or not? If it's peaceful, they're not hurting people. Absolutely. I mean, so yes, so people sometimes wear masks and look like clowns when they're doing it. No one complains. So burning may seem excessive, but at a point when there's enough anger against a political class that has and is deliberately watering down our constitution, not for the sake of Kenya, but for their own personal benefit. There is reason for anger there, absolutely. And I think some of these things are justified. That we've got to find a way. In fact, what for me lacks in Kenya is that we don't have a system where we can express our anger appropriately and frequently to our political leaders. Because there's a lot of anger simmering in Kenyans. Absolutely. We are angry at the politicians for the way they. I mean, look, the president of Kenya decides that it's not good to award MPs a pension, but for himself it's okay. I mean, that is the height, to be honest, that's the height of impunity. Of impunity, to be honest, because I think one of the cardinal principles of constitutional law is that you should never that no law should be passed that benefits the people passing it. So no law should have been passed in this case for the president, for him to benefit. If that law was passed to benefit the next president, then Kibaki could happily sign it. It's less. But this is very selfish. Otherwise, you just be passing laws that guarantee you things for yourself. And it's unconstitutional, it is unethical, and it is immoral. Absolutely. And I think that the president there goofed badly. And I think it's part of a pattern we have seen where our leaders use law and use their status and they use power to benefit themselves at the expense of everybody else.
And what message is this passing? This kind of protest, of burning things and perhaps even violence on the streets.
Violence is not protest.
But
let's be careful.
What I'm saying is this: when somebody from the diaspora or a UK citizen sees a picture of a burning coffin with a number of people around it with their hands raised, and it looks very animated. What kind of message is that sending? Because in central London, I've never seen anything.
I don't know where
burned.
you are when in 2003 people are protesting against the Iraqi war. They were burning effigies. They were burning effigies of Bush.
But how many people were arrested in that process?
How many were arrested?
There were quite a few, which I read that a number of people were arrested, detained as well for causing disruption.
But you see, if part of the protest is that you go and have a bonfire and burn the coffins, that's fine. Yes. I mean, what I have to keep saying is that yes, if you're burning a coffin in the middle of a building, that of course is a public order issue. It's a disruption. That's not appropriate. But if you have gone off and found an area and say, we will burn the coffins here, and you've got the authorization, say, of Freedom Corner to do so, you're not burning trees, and you've contained it, it is symbolic. It's fine. It is fine. As long as it's not hurting people. And yes, it's animated, but we are animated people in Kenya.
Absolutely,
I mean, it's okay, it's part of who we are, and that's what, as long as we retain our peacefulness and our non-violent nature, and we know that we're trying to send a message, I don't have a problem with that at all.
So what's next for you, Maina? What are some of the things that you're working on next?
In which capacity?
In now your capacity as the UN Special Rapporteur. What are some of the things that you're,
Well, I work across the world, and so I on a daily basis I send communications to governments asking questions about issues of abuses of rights of peaceful assembly and an association. I travel across the world a lot in taking unofficial missions like this, but also on unofficial missions to meetings, to meet NGO people, to meet civil society, to talk about this right often. But in terms of official missions, I have invitations now to Guatemala and Honduras, which I'm going to try and set dates. I've got an invitation to Rwanda, an invitation to Maldives. So I'm going to sit down and see.
I went to my honeymoon there.
And see how it fits in.
Very nice
I've
place.
never been to Maldives. I've never been to Maldives.
Yes.
So there's many places to go, and there's quite a few invitations from other countries. So I can only do 2 or 3 in a year because I have other things that I do.
Schedule. And so, lastly, what are your thoughts on the political climate in Kenya at the moment? It's very exciting. I think we have 46 days left until March 4th. What are your thoughts now as a Kenyan?
As a Kenyan, I am exceedingly worried by the IEBC.
Yes.
I'm exceedingly worried that the IEBC, which is charged with controlling and managing these elections, has proven to be such a pushover.
Yes.
One of the reasons we had problems in 2007 was that the ECK then was seen as weak, was seen as spineless, and was being able to be pushed. The law creating the IEBC was structured in a way to make it independent, but to also make it strong and stand up to politicians. But consistently throughout this process, the IEBC has been buckling to the whims of political class. I am not sure why or what it means, but the message it has sent to us as voters is that if politicians push enough, then they will get what they want. The IEBC set very firmly the date of January 18th as the final day for handing in nominations. That date was not a secret. It was known by everybody. They should have stuck to it. And so parties, I'm sorry, you knew we had this date. You had from the 4th of January until the 18th of January to do your nominations. If you thought you'd do them on 18th, that's your problem. You have no names, you have no candidates. Simple. Let the country be shocked. But why they then changed it. I don't understand. They have allowed party hopping like crazy with the registrar of political parties, who is the most inefficient, ineffective, worthless public servant we're paying. It is absolutely unconscionable that we are paying a person who does nothing but agree to what the politician says, who's afraid to make decisions, afraid of her own shadow. It cannot be. And this is absolutely unacceptable.
Yes.
It needs a person who will stand up and say, no, this is the law. Party hopping is not allowed. That's what we wanted from our constitution.
Exactly.
That's what we voted for.
Yes.
But they have gone around and manipulated it for their own benefit, and the IEBC, with all its organs, has accepted it.
And the IEBC, and I know I said lastly before, but this is the last one. The diaspora vote, we have been completely let down by what they've done. Right? It's almost as though they didn't want us to vote. Yes? They dangled a piece of string and they said, okay, look, you now have the right to vote as a diaspora, not just in the UK, but in the US and wherever else you are. And then now that's been withdrawn.
I think on that the number of things were, I think the IEBC has really messed that process up. One is that if it itself made a determination that it could not handle it, it should have let us know, as the country and the diaspora know, long time ago.
Advance.
But what gets me is that it waited until the Minister of Justice had said there's been no diaspora voting, and then they announced it. So then you begin wondering, was this a plan? Is this by the government or by IEBC? Are they independent or not? And this has been one of a series of actions that the IEBC has been taking, but always waits for the executive to make a decision, and then it comes in supporting it. That is, again, makes me feel very, very nervous about this IEBC. Is it independent? Is the chairman strong enough? Does he know what he's doing? Those are questions I feel very worried about. Now, on the diaspora voting, I think, again, notice should have been given a long time ago, but if they wanted, I think there were also some issues where I think the diaspora was demanding way too much about it as well.
Were they?
Yes, I think so. I think particular ones in America who wanted polling stations in every single state. I'm sorry, I mean, some things won't happen that way. And there are some things you can say where I think what the IEBC was saying, we have a consulate in Los Angeles, we have the mission in New York and the one in Washington, find your way there. I think there has to be some sacrifice around this. This is a new thing we're trying to do. And I think some of the demands became a bit excessive from the diaspora because this was the first one. And had they said, yes, if you live in Kansas and you have to drive it's 8 hours, you drive it then. If you want to win, there are not many diasporas that vote. So enjoy it, revel in it, make it a big celebration of going to vote and register. But to make it, we want one in Kansas, we want to, come on, come on. I mean, there's some things where the demands become too much, and you start looking actually out of touch with reality. And you have to touch with reality. So there's some things could have been done better, and I think again, ultimately, people in government did not want diaspora to vote. I think they don't know how you will vote, so I think they're worried about it. And the way our politicians work is that they predict the vote. So they're not sure how you guys would vote, which is why they thought this is too risky, too unpredictable.
Who do you think will get it? Who do you think will be president March 4th?
I don't know who will be president March 4th, I know who I don't want to be president.
Give us
and I will be very clear that I am very strongly opposed to people who are accused of crimes against humanity, contesting for the presidency and possibly winning it. I think that is a huge black mark on us. It is an embarrassment to us that these guys would put the country to that place simply to protect themselves. There's no other reason. Now, yes, we all agree they're innocent till they're proven guilty. However, if somebody is charged with corruption, they're not allowed to run for public office. If somebody is charged with murder, they're not allowed to contest for it. But you're charged with crimes against humanity. It means 1,000 people killing, and you can still contest. That is incredibly outrageous. However, so my view is let them go and sort themselves out at The Hague. If they're found innocent, we will welcome them with open arms. We will then have an election where they can contest. But contesting now, while they've got this case, is basically telling us Kenyans that they are way more important than we are. And that to me is unacceptable. So that I can tell you, I know what I don't want to happen. But I am only one vote. I'm only one voice. But I'm happy to express it.
Fantastic. Maina, we really thank you and appreciate for your time.
Thank you.
And all the best on everything else that you'll be working on for the rest of this year.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
Asante sana.
Nashukuru. Na usiniite vibaya tena.
No. Sitaweza tena. I'll never do it again.
Otherwise nitakuita Kiriamiti.
And that's exactly how they say it. Asante.
No, si yangu zote.
You don't have it.